Welcome to Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Got an interesting show today. Going to talk about some of the larger news stories that I think have relevance to the bigger conversation about what is going on with Republicans and our broken judicial system, as well as our broken electoral system. However, leading into that, I would very much like to talk about what you can do to change the American political, judicial, you name it, landscape. Because the pattern to follow is going to be the same. Also, closing out the show, we have a twist on this, which is what you can do that doesn't involve politicians at all. We had a viewer comment saying they were interested in solutions that did not involve politicians. I fully understand. I fully understand that sentiment. There are such solutions available. I'll present those at the end, partially because we tend to accrue an audience throughout the live stream, and also because that is a smaller subsection of the larger strategy of organizing in order to get change accomplished in the USA. So starting off, what can you do to change America? How do you go from caring to taking action? Fortunately, you live in an age where it is exceedingly easy to do this. Well, let me take that back. The paths are not closed to anyone these days. You're not limited as much by want of a vehicle or by living in a rural area because there's too many miles between you and somebody else who's like-minded. Fortunately, we have the internet. Utilize that tool. You're using it right now. You're capable of navigating the web. It divides the work significantly. But even if you're not a tech-minded person, these same strategies work. They're tried and tested. And they just take various analog forms then that take more time. But let's get right to it. So first of all, you want to start accomplishing change in the USA. Understand your targets. At the end of the day, any organization you put in place will likely only last as long as you're willing to put the effort in. So you do have to sway politicians. You should note who those are. Who are the ones that you personally can sway? Yeah, the president represents you, technically. But they also represent hundreds of millions of other people. That dilutes your voice. So you writing an email to the White House doesn't do nearly as much as the same effort in writing an email could be to somebody who is more dependent on your vote specifically. So make a note of the chain of people that represents you. To get an idea, here are the 3 people I recommend you find out who they are, or the 3 people who I recommend you note who they are. Like, literally write it down. Find out who represents your district. In the description, in nearly every show, we have the link to find your representative. This is the person who it will be easiest to sway, who has an effect on national policies. Find your district representative. Find out who your state senators are. Find out who the governor of your state is. And you know all of them already? Cool. You got a leg up. With a simple Google search, you can get the contact information for them. All the time, we hear about some politician coming out and saying, I got death threats over X or Y. I was treated horribly over X or Y. And that is bad. That shouldn't be happening. But I think progressives hear that and think people who contact their representatives are crazies. That might be so, but it shouldn't be. Those are people who are abusing an otherwise good system that you should be taking advantage of. Contacting these politicians has an effect. Don't let them operate blindly. If you're angry about policies they're pushing or failing to push, let them know. Give them a fair chance to do what you want them to do. If they are only going off of, did I get elected and by how much? They're going to do a lot of reading of tea leaves to figure out what their constituents want out of them. Make it clear. Make your perspective crystal clear. Noting who these people are will also help you when you get a little bit more advanced. Thing number 2 that you can do, aside from noting who the people who rely on your vote are, is contact anyone involved in any of these stories. Fox News says something abhorrent. Write Fox News. If CNN has a candidate on that they ask a question to, and that candidate or politician, they don't have to be running for office at the time, if that politician fails to answer a question and the interviewer doesn't press them on it, lets them get away with it, write CNN. Mention that moment. Say, I was disappointed to see a lack of follow-up on that question. Why did they move on to a different question? If the politician didn't want to answer it clearly, well, then clearly that's the question they should have focused on. That will have an effect on the news coverage of these politicians. Remember what we so frequently say here. Constant pressure is what is needed. So whatever you do, just make sure it's something you can keep up. It's why I highly recommend emails as a form of contact. You can send them any time of the day. It requires very little effort, and it has a measurable effect. Also, getting used to contacting people that you are not personally acquainted with helps you develop the skills necessary for all other organizing. Related note. Form communities, online or in person. All you need to do, let's say you're a user of Facebook. You pick your favorite social media. And let's take Facebook as the example here. Start by searching for your town or your area, and then relevant communities that you would be interested in supporting or that have similar goals as you do, and join those groups. Citizens Take Action has groups. The DSA has branches all over. In fact, Northern Michigan University just started a youth DSA group, and congratulations to them. That's Democratic Socialists of America. Find groups near you. If they don't exist, there's something you can do right there. Create them so that the next guy, the next lady who's feeling frazzled and is looking to join up with somebody, has somewhere to go. Doesn't matter if you're the only person in the group for 2 months. Form the group. Monitor it. Just keep the notifications on. If you actually succeed in getting 10, 15 people to sign up, Now you can take further steps. Are you already used to writing your representative? If you write them with an email saying, I just got 15 people to sign on to this letter with me. Here are their email addresses and names. And we say we want you to do X. We say we want you to do Y. Man, that's going to have an effect. We talk all the time about how 5 people is a big deal to a lot of these representatives. 15 people is a huge deal. One person who shows they're organized enough to gather voters into a single block for a cause. That's huge. And you know what? It can feel kind of cool, too. Because that's the kind of thing where sometimes your district representative will respond to you personally. It's a cool feeling to take a call from your representative who's interested in pleasing you. It can be you with a relatively small amount of effort, as long as that effort is constant over a long enough period of time. So recapping what we've done so far, make a note of who you should be in contact with. Start a community group if one doesn't exist. If one does exist, join it. If you have enough people in your community group, spur activity by getting them to sign on to a letter, which is simply a wording of a stance that you agree with, that would spur a representative to action. It also does not have to be as grand even as your district representative. If you find that you have a particularly active town, make a note of who your mayor is, or perhaps who's on the city council. Since the days of COVID, most city councils stream their meetings, the usually bi-weekly meetings that, or perhaps it's once a month, regardless, the meetings that are required to be open to the public after the Open Meetings Act. That means you can just stay on YouTube, subscribe to your city council's YouTube page, which most of them have these days, and know what your city council's up to. This is an easy way to get people organized. Showing up at a city council is how a lot of nationally recognized activists got their start. If you have that group of 10, 15 people in your area, oh my gosh, all you turn up to a city council meeting with an issue you care about? I have seen, and this is your old pal Jake's area of expertise, I have seen that many people turn the tide, change the direction that a town was going in. So if you want to start making changes in America, to recap, make note of who you have to contact. Make note of who is relevant to you specifically. That will most commonly take the form of your representative, your state senators, and your governor. You can go as small, however, as your mayor, your city council, your school district's board of education. Very easy to organize a group of parents in that regard. Thing number 2, form communities, online or in person. And if you get a big enough community, now let's push it even further. You get a big enough community, you can hold events. Let's say you manage to grow that community to 30 people, maybe even 50 people. You organize an event that you know they're going to care about, and you get 50 people to sign up. You can count on about 15 to 20 people showing up. Sometimes that's enough to get the local news out there covering it. Regardless, make it fun. Do advocates and omelets day. You're going to go out to brunch, have a lovely omelet. Then at precisely 1 p.m., turn up to protest X, Y, or Z. If you care about it, nothing wrong with simply making a show of it. And again, consistent pressure. If it's something you want to advocate for, and you want that change to happen, and you know it's probably not going to happen after one protest, be realistic with your group. Tell them as much. Make it a fun day. Everybody, we're putting on our Sunday best. We're going to get omelets every Sunday at X, Y, or Z place that I happen to like. And then we're going to go out in front of City Hall with signs for an hour from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Simple as that. Make a show of your displeasure, because I'm hearing a lot of displeasure out there. And you know what? Rightly so. About to go into some of the news of the day, which will likely increase that displeasure. But there is something you can do about it. We're going to have most likely a series of videos on how to organize. But they're going to start with that same pattern. Number one, find out who the people who are relevant to you are. Representatives, senators, governor. Number two, make a community. Look for a community. If the work's already done for you, great. You can join up with them. Find people who are like-minded in your area. Number three, organize that community. Begin doing things like simply writing a letter saying, if anybody agrees to this, please put your name and email address in the yada, yada, yada. This is a private group. Work out the logistics, but get multiple people to sign on to a letter that you then simply email to the relevant person. From there, it becomes easier and easier. One more thing. Find out who the allies are. If you are somebody who marches in BLM protests, I would expect you to be out there when a trans rights protest is happening. If you are in the LGBTQ plus community, I would expect you to be out there when the BLM protests are inevitably happening, because we have inevitably had another nightmare happen in our country. The nature of being an ally. If you're in neither of those communities, but you don't like seeing people get bullied, be out there with them. How do you be out there with them? You got to join the relevant groups in your area. At a minimum, in your state, there are groups representing either of these. They exist on social media. Statistically speaking, so do you. Follow them. If you do not use social media at all, fair enough. Sign up for their emails. The specific chapter in your area, sign up for their emails, because that you can practically follow. You get an alert saying, hey, there's a protest this Saturday. You know where to go. So be a strong ally as well. If you become a community organizer, if you take the step to start your own group to deal with a specific issue, or to deal with a range of issues that you don't see dealt with in your area, or from the perspective that you feel they ought to be, going out to those other protests, the Black Lives Matter, the LGBTQ plus community protests, etc., etc., that will get you known in your states, in your areas, activist community. That means it will be easier for you yourself to populate protests, to get attention drawn to what you care about most. So there is benefits to being an ally beyond simply doing what's right. We are stronger together. There's something else you can do. Talk about specific things you might want to take up. Right now, You ever curious why Fox News seems to run the same defense for the same people that, say, Steven Crowder does? Well, that'll be because they're both bought by billionaires. Can't even remember what Ben Shapiro's network is, but The Blaze, I think. But all of these places have funding well beyond their initial audience. Where does that come from? That literally comes from billionaires. These are the same people who are buying our politicians. One issue you might consider taking up is getting big money out of politics. There is already a group working on that. You can join with this group. That's called Citizens Take Action. And they're working on a constitutional amendment, which would be the only thing that can supersede a couple of disastrous Supreme Court decisions. Constitutional amendment that would get big money out of politics. This is from their website. Link in the description. By the way, you can sign up for Citizens Take Action there as well. We must pass a constitutional amendment to get big money out of politics because poorly reasoned Supreme Court decisions like Buckley v. Vallejo and Citizens United are the primary reason big money has flooded our political system at unprecedented levels. No constitutional amendment can make every change we want on its own, but we cannot get big money out of politics without a constitutional amendment. There's some surprising allies in this fight. Adam Schiff is one. Adam, generally speaking, middle-of-the-road Schiff, is very much a supporter of this. Bernie Sanders, obviously, is one. Here's a strange one. Matt Gaetz. It's likely because nobody wants to give that guy money because then they're associated with him. But he truly is an advocate for getting big money out of politics, which means it's not going to be hard to get him to specifically say that he supports this here. Put a script in the description near where you can find your representative's contact information. Even if you don't want to do any organizing beyond this, you can simply write your representative and tell them that you want them to endorse the 28th Amendment. That would be the Restore Our Democracy Amendment. Citizens Take Action are the people who are leading this fight. I'm proud to say some wicked viewers have already signed up for Citizens Take Action. Hell yes. Keep it going. Constant pressure is how we will get this done. If you can get your representative to say that they support this as well, it's only going to get more and more eyes on it. A lot of people have the sentiment that they want to get big money out of politics, and they have no idea how. They have no idea what they would advocate for. This is what to advocate for. We just need all of us on the same page. Having all those allies supporting each other doesn't mean anything if we don't have a specific plan. If we're just generally sending good vibes back and forth, it doesn't mean anything. It needs to be all pushing in the same direction for getting big money out of politics. That's the direction to push. If you are interested in dealing with the politically corrupt in our country, the people who, for example, straight up tried a coup, have a look at this list of states. Are you from one of those? Is your state missing a green check mark? If so, I have great news for you. You can do more than most. These are states that were involved in the fake electors plot. The January 6th committee spelled out in plain detail a conspiracy in which Trump was at the top, giving orders. The federal government has failed in now into our third years since this clown got out of office to pursue any charges. Any charges. Guy stole classified documents, refused to give them back. No charges. We've got further examples coming up in a moment of Republicans getting away with crimes. However, there is nothing except for cowardice and tradition, which one would argue is a tradition of cowardice, stopping the state attorney generals from opening state investigations into the false elector plot. Proof is in the pudding. Michigan, the AG, Dana Nessel, had closed the state investigation when the federal government said they were opening one. It was way back in 2020. Then, quite recently, as in within, I think, 3 weeks, Dana Nessel said, no, we're reopening our state investigation. It's simply been too long. Proof it's been too long? People who are named by the J6 committee have run for and been elected to public office. It has been too long. Fani Willis, she is doing a slightly different investigation, but it's into what amounts to the same thing. Pressuring Brad Raffensperger to try to overturn Georgia's election results. States have the power to do this. If you are from one of the states up there, I have provided in the description the link for your attorney general. Contact them and say you expect them to protect you. That is their job. Another benefit to the state investigations. It's going to get a lot of the corrupt folks that were involved in this at the state level that a federal investigation would likely ignore or give a pass to in order to get Trump. What you have there is 7 bites at the apple. You only need 1 to get Trump in prison. Just 1 to be successful in court. The January 6th committee, which I can't stress enough, they're not professional investigators. They're just people with the authority to ask questions. January 6th committee made a dang good case for Trump's involvement in all of those. Every single one. Tell your state AG to get on the ball. If you just want to tell Merrick Garland generally that he ought to have done this already, there's also the General Department of Justice contact link. Well, let's have a look. Well, let me try this again, but from a slightly better cutting position. Let's have a look at Ring of Fire with Farron Cousins. He recently discussed the Ron DeSantis case regarding an unconstitutional firing of his AG and the judge ruling against him. But of course, this is America, which means no actual punishment was given. You'll see why.
A federal judge in the state of Florida late last week ruled that Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis had in fact not only violated the Florida state constitution, but also violated the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution when he improperly suspended State Attorney Andrew Warren, who was an elected official. So technically, right, I mean, DeSantis really didn't have the authority to suspend the guy, so Warren had sued Ron DeSantis for suspending him from his job.
Yeah, let me correct there. Not Attorney General, State Attorney. My mistake.
And DeSantis had claimed, I'm suspending you because you're one of many people around here who've apparently signed on to an agreement to not prosecute people under Florida's anti-abortion laws. And the judge determined, like, that wasn't a thing that even happened. And of course, Warren had denied from the beginning, like, that's not a thing that happened. That's not a thing that exists. You're suspending me over make-believe, and you're the one who made it up. You just want to get rid of me because you don't like me politically.
Yeah, that's also known as the standard Republican playbook. It's the same reason why we currently don't have the little cartoon M&M spokespeople. It's a made-up problem that Republicans then say, we got to do something about. It's how they handle everything.
And the judge agreed. Here's what the judge had to say. Mr. Warren's well-established policy, followed in every case by every prosecutor in the office, was to exercise prosecutorial discretion at every stage of every case. Any reasonable investigation would have confirmed this. In his opinion, there was not a hint of misconduct by Mr. Warren. So, case closed, right? Warren wins. Awesome. Except no.
What do we say happens every single time that a Republican can't get out of being ruled against? As in, to find in their favor would literally undo our justice system. What happens every single time? It gets kicked from the criminal court to the civil court. Every time we say this. Well, the judge just said, Mr. DeSantis, what you said was wrong. In fact, you violated Florida's state constitution. In fact, you violated the Constitution of the country. Is the judge going to, let's go light, is the judge going to make Ron DeSantis issue a public statement saying that he was incorrect in doing so? Is the judge going to fine Ron DeSantis, which wouldn't be fair, but, because, rich people have more money, a fine means less? Maybe. Or is the judge going to follow the standard Republican cover-up playbook? Let's find out. Fair and Cousins, what was it?
Because even though the judge said, Ron DeSantis, you violated the Florida Constitution, you violated the U.S. Constitution, this guy was right, you are wrong, but I'm still going to go ahead and rule in your favor. And he dismissed the lawsuit.
Dismissed the lawsuit.
And the reason he says is because, hey, listen, Andrew Warren, hey, you're a nice guy. You're 100% right. This guy's violating the Constitution left and right. But I can't restore you to office.
Could have ordered Ron DeSantis to do a lot of things. Could have approached it from the point of view of, what does Ron DeSantis have to do as a consequence of this? How can we make Ron DeSantis make this right in the people's eyes? Could have done that. What did they do instead?
So I can't rule in your favor. So, that's our justice system for you. Hope you enjoyed it.
It's worse.
Bye. That's it. That's what the judge determined.
No. Say what's the excuse.
So Ron DeSantis just gets away with it. Like, he literally just gets away with it. The judge confirmed that you politically targeted this guy. You violated his constitutional rights. You violated the Constitution overall. He's right. You're wrong. You lied. He told the truth. Ron DeSantis, you win.
I'm waiting to hear it.
Why bother? Why? Nothing matters.
Civil court.
Nothing matters. In this country, or at least in this state where I am right now, Florida, nothing matters.
God
the
help
rule
you,
of
fair
law
and
doesn't
Cousins.
matter. Because they will do nothing. Even if you're right. Even if the other side is wrong. Nothing. This is just utter insanity. And my mind is blown by this judge's decision. And it's basically a cop-out. But what Mr. Warren can, of course, use this for now is he's got the ruling saying you did violate the Constitution. So he can now sue for damages against Ron DeSantis, which, hey, is great. but it still doesn't correct the injustices that this man served that apparently the court system is willing to do absolutely nothing to correct.
Yep. Standard playbook. So what judges do, because they are very uncomfortable holding a conservative responsible for anything, what they do, or a powerful person in general responsible for anything. And if they're a conservative, powerful person, my God, forget it. What a judge will do is kick it over to civil court. He didn't write an order saying take this to civil court. It's the options that are left in their wording. They will say, I don't have the authority to X, Y, or Z. And it will be known then that as long as you have enough money to start a whole lawsuit, as long as you have the money to afford an attorney to hold another rich person accountable, because you can't do this if you aren't yourself wealthy. If you don't at least have state's attorney money, a law degree, probably a car that starts with a button instead of a turning of a key, one of those types. You don't have that, you have no justice available to you. If you are that guy, you can gamble your money against the other person's money and try to sue them in court, where you will have the same uphill battle. You'll recall earlier, I was saying if you are from one of these states, you should strongly consider contacting your state AG and saying you want a state investigation opened into the fake elector's case. Not an accident that we have that Ring of Fire clip. We need to make it so obvious, the law breaking that has happened. So obvious that ignoring it becomes impossible. The neat thing about these cases are that they all deal with voter fraud. They all deal with the fake elector plot. They all deal with disenfranchising an entire state. You cannot kick that over to civil court. We must pursue these. These are realistic options. The only green check mark up there that is specifically for the fake electors cases came from Dana Nessel, who cited in an interview on MSNBC with Ari Melber, pressure from her constituents. That means phone calls, emails from people living in Michigan. She said, how can I answer to my constituents if I don't do this? Every one of the attorneys general for those states are Democrats. They should be asking themselves the same things, because right now, they're going to act like that Florida judge. They think not enough people are watching. They don't have to take up this difficult fight. They don't have to be the one to stick their neck out and get the death threats from Trump cultists. They're in purple states. They don't want those death threats. In Michigan, the governor was nearly kidnapped by the Wolverine Watchmen, a terrorist group. I can say that now because guess what? They've been convicted. Terrorist group which had a whole plan, involved blowing up a bridge and kidnapping the governor, holding a kangaroo court, and then executing her. So they're not going to do this unless they know that you're watching and that you care and that you insist they do it. So insist. Otherwise, we're going to get more of the same, which thus far has been a whole lot of injustice in what is supposed to be a democracy. Well, D.L. Hughley is back once again. He's crushing it. The beginning of this video is, if I'm not mistaken, loud, and I will try not to play it too loudly. But yeah, he's talking about George Santos in this latest from the GED section. And, you know, he really hit on something that I don't think was talked about clearly enough. Certainly, he's approaching this from an angle I hadn't even thought about in all this, what do they say, all this mishigas, this craziness around his various lies, which is that the people of New York didn't really elect him, did they? They elected the collection of lies he said were who he was. But that's not George Santos, as we've learned. Let's go to the man himself. Here's D.L. Hughley. Pull this way down. Well, the video starts up. Oh, DL. There we go.
That, of course, was Sunshine Anderson. Heard it all before, haven't we? So,
side note. Oh, it's playing on my a past life. Oh, I do love the radio intro.
George Santos is the newly elected congressman from Long Island. He is in battle, and he's in battle by many of his own party, particularly his constituents in Long Island, because George Santos lied virtually about everything. Where he went to school, how much money he made, where his parents died, what team he played for. So virtually nothing about him is true. Nothing. And of course, the Republicans now have a slim majority. They hold on to the House. And I believe that is their major consideration. Kevin McCarthy, Leader McCarthy, said, well, he was duly elected, by the people of by his constituents. He was not. The guy they elected is not the guy that showed up. His representative showed up. He lied virtually about every single thing. Now, let's be clear. Politicians lie about things all the time. And there are lies that we have learned to deal with as the American people. We are comfortable, or we are used to politicians lying. But to the degree that he lied, it is so egregious that many in his own party are saying this is too much. A party that has lived with lying for a very long time. They had a president who they still actively support who lies on the regular. They used to keep a running tab on how much he lied.
So one note that it's not the point Mr. Hughley's making here, but it got me thinking. It's a long shot, but do you reckon that George Santos is the man's legal name? What did he swear in under? Did he even take the oath under a name that is his? Is he Anthony DeVolder or is he George Santos? What's on his tax forms? I'm going to try to look into that. I'm not so sure that I'll be able to come up with an answer. If you want to sic someone on it that is very likely to be able to come up with an answer, put a link for ABC 7 New York in the description. Contact him. Just tell that station they'll have an email address available somewhere on their site in the contact section. Usually, if you scroll to the very bottom of their talent page. But yeah, a FOIA ought to get that. And if his name genuinely is George Santos, okay, glad he got that changed, I guess, before he was sworn in. If it isn't, very interesting. I wonder what implications that could have. But let's go to the larger point D.L. Hughley is making, which is that the man that was elected was a non-existent person. It was all lies, Santos told. Can you really say that George Santos got elected?
It is not fair to burden the constituents of that district by saying that they voted for him when he was not. That's like you meeting somebody and everything about them is a lie. Everything about them is a lie.
Sure.
If you lied on the application to that degree and got the job, they would fire you. Why does he get to be a representative of the people? He lied about everything. Lying about every single aspect of your personal life is not how you get elected. It's how you catfish. He could be on MTV. He doesn't need to be in the halls of governance. And what committee can you sit such a one liar in? And the problem is that he is perfectly comfortable in a party that is used to lying and conspiracy. They're used to it.
The actual committees are escaping me right now, but he got sat on 2 committees and neither of them were minor. 2 significant committees. It makes me real uncomfortable that a guy that appears, has been confirmed to have taken Russian money in a $23,000 donation and mysteriously got $700,000 out of nowhere. He's making decisions for America. He literally owes the Russians his candidacy, and he's making decisions for America.
Matter of fact, it may be a prerequisite. You got people now who are sitting on committees that are about the safety of the United States of America who willfully try to overthrow America. 30 to 50 congressmen right now and a few senators right now who are going to be, Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be on the committee.
Crazy.
She actively tried to overthrow the government. And the interesting thing that Leader McCarthy said, well, he was elected and he'll go through the ethics process. What ethics exists there? You supported a man who tried to overthrow the government. You keep people in positions of power and key chair committees who have been consorted with white supremacists and white nationalists. You put a woman on the intelligence team that tried to overthrow the government. What ethics? To have an ethics party, you have to have ethics. You have to decide that there are some things you won't tolerate, and apparently there aren't. George Santos is not who the people of that district represented. They're not the people. He's not the person that they voted for. He's the made-up guy they voted for. But I guess in this Republican Party, that will do. All you got to do is show up and vote the way they want you to. They will accept anything.
Absolutely nailing it. D.L. Hughley, welcome to the no notes section. That's it exactly. If there is anything good about Santos, Trump, Green, Gates, they have laid bare what was always true about the Republican Party. And if you yourself used to be a Republican and you dropped out after 2016 because you couldn't handle the craziness, first of all, congratulations on being able to think critically and change your mind. Second, and it's going to be hard to hear, all of these people are only doing a sloppier version of what Republicans have been doing since Newt Gingrich's heyday in the early 90s. Remember the Clinton impeachment? Did that make sense to you in the context of American impeachments of presidents up until that time? Truly? I have all kinds of beef with Bill Clinton. I do not like neoliberal policy as a rule. But the Clinton impeachment was ridiculous. It was a show trial. It was a political stunt. That has been all Republicans are. They're a way for the rich to steal from America by distracting with culture war nonsense. The war on Christmas, pushed by Fox News, specifically a propaganda channel set up by Roger Ailes. He's on the record talking about it. It's designed to be that. That predates Trump. That predates all of this. If America survives, the Republican Party will not. I would like you, the audience, to just make a note now of where we are, where we're going, and what is likely to happen. Where we are, Republican politics laid bare. I dare say right-wing politics laid bare. Where are we going? We are either not going to have a Republican Party or we're not going to have a democracy. Because the Republican Party has demonstrated that it's fine not operating on democratic principle, ignoring the popular vote, ignoring the winner of elections, claiming all elections that they don't win are rigged. They've demonstrated that. What are we going to be? Well, assuming we survive the demise of the Republican Party, watch the Democrats real close. They are already much more comfortable advocating for conservative policy than they are for progressive policy. I think we are perhaps on the verge. I'll go further. I think we are likely on the verge of seeing the end of Republicans as a party altogether, and the birth of the new right wing, which would be the Democrats. We have Joe Manchin voting against the filibuster. Under the guise of being a Democrat, we had Kristen Sinema voting against the minimum wage increase. This is a party that is comfortable hosting conservatives, which means get ready for them to be the new conservatives, to fill that void. I don't think MAGA is going to give up the fight before they've ruined the party's reputation entirely. We who are interested in actually bettering America should make an effort to prepare for that day now. Make a note of who the voting blocs are that vote for minimum wage increases, that vote for Medicare for all, that vote for getting big money out of politics. Pay attention to those folks, because they're going to be the new left wing. And we'll probably have to find a different name. So let's say you want to change the country you live in, and you're sick to death of hearing about politicians. You are convinced that they can do no good for you. It's understandable. I would still argue that putting pressure on your politicians, at least in early 2023, is going to have the best overall effect for the effort put in. Simply because that's someone's paycheck who's dependent on, theoretically, pleasing you. In reality, getting your vote while pleasing big donors. But you have leverage over them. They still, so far, require your vote. Let's say you're done with dealing with that. You want a no politician route. Fair enough. We talked earlier about organizing locally for issues you believe in. Not only can you do that, you can do that and get government funding. Let's say there's an issue you care about. You want it dealt with, so you organize. You start a social media group. You have a plan. Potholes on your streets, let's say. Apply for a grant from the government. Link in the description. The government is constantly funding activists of all sorts. Rather, they're funding community programs. There is a stream of grants, particularly since the days of COVID, that are designed for Americans to take advantage of if they want to get something done. So if you want to get something done yourself, and you're looking for a tangible way to have an effect, For example, you need to buy tools to do the work, or you need, say it's removing graffiti from your city. You got a lot of graffiti. It's been there for years. It's not the pretty kind. It's a bunch of curse words or whatever. Put in for a grant. That simple. In this, I put 2 links in the description about this. One is just sort of the overview, and the other is the actual search page. Where, as you can see up there, I screenshotted it. You can narrow it down by all sorts of criteria. Think about what you want to do to make your community better, to make America better, and apply for one of these grants. And then you can get the funding to get it done. This is money on the table, and I'll tell you, the people who normally take it are big business. Not even big business. Let me take that back. The people that normally take it are medium business. If you know somebody in your town that owns like 3 dealerships, and they're comparatively rich, but they're, not a 100+ millionaire. They're like maybe they got 10 million in the bank. That's the kind of person that normally gets these grants. And they normally use them for things that mostly benefit them and then benefit the community a little. Best case scenario, you'll get somebody that is looking essentially for free advertisement. They get 4 or 5 of their employees to do some charitable work funded by the government, and then they get all the newspaper write-ups and local news stations and yada, 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 essentially saying, look, this Chevrolet dealer is doing this thing. That's fine. If they're actually doing what they say they're going to do, fine. My point is there's nothing stopping you from getting a hold of that grant money. There are grants for all sorts of things. Just keep your eyes out. If you want to know what you can do in your community to make it better, to organize on a local level, even to build a reputation as someone in your community who's just a known person, a helper, this is a great way to get started. It's great because, first of all, it's funding. You actually get the ability to do things. Spend money. If you want to beautify the city, get rid of that old graffiti, yeah, you need a power washer. Okay, well, this grant is for $15,000. That hires a power washer, a crew. Great, get to it. It's also great because it gives you restrictions. By looking up these grants, you see one that's close to what you want, it'll give you certain boundaries, certain boxes that need to be ticked. That's very useful when you're getting started, because it stops you from going all over the place. It focuses you onto one specific issue, one specific problem to solve. Now, this, of course, means you have to have some necessary skill set, some relevant ability that would justify the government giving you this grant. And in fact, most of these are not for individuals. But if you can demonstrate that you have the ability to do whatever thing the grant says needs fulfilling, apply for it. There's nothing wrong with applying for it. Essentially, you just got to keep the receipts and file the paperwork they tell you to file. They explain to you in the grants what they need. Worth sinking your teeth into. And it segues quite nicely into what you can do if you are willing to talk to politicians. Because if you're somebody who has demonstrated that you can do this, you are certainly going to get the attention of local leaders. They're going to want to have your ear. And that is something you can take advantage of. I know it feels like gloom and doom a lot, because we have a big job ahead of us. The good news is That big job can be broken down into smaller tasks. And what feels like a small effort likely goes farther than you think it does. The gap between having done nothing and having beaten this evil, it's not as wide as it seems. It's there. There's work to do. But it's not impossible. And we can overcome it. I'll be here with you. And if you do, by the way, take any of this advice and put any of it into action, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I like to hold up people who are actually taking action, who are actually making a difference, or at the very least trying to inspire others. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. I've been your old pal, Jake. I'll see you next time.
You can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, you can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, yeah.
The game is strategic, I'm bobbing and weaving. Don't argue with demons, okay? Ain't nothing between us, vacation on Venus. I mean it, I'm somewhere you ain't, okay? I feel like I'm Jordan when I turn the mic on a dangerous cycle. I make you a rival, I pray for the title.